Alright, how's everybody doing again today? Back again with another review for you guys. And today, I'm going to be doing my full review of the Moto E 2nd generation 3G model. And it's going to be my honest opinions here. Just after using it solidly for about 3 or so weeks. It'll be 3 weeks tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get into this. I hope y'all enjoy. Alright. Real quick before we talk about the device here, I just want to mention the charger. Now this is the standard charger that comes with the Moto E. And I must say, it's quite long. So you have no problems there. And the charge time with this is about 4 hours. And I can say that, yeah, it's 4 hours. And it worked out quite nicely and I really enjoyed it. Haven't really been using it too much because, as y'all know, I'm also reviewing a power bank as well, and I'll be putting that review up shortly. So I haven't really used this much, but in my testing, it did take about 4 hours to charge to 100. So just wanted to say that and put that off to the side. Now, let's bring the device back in here. Now, in terms of build quality here, I would have to say the device is very solid. As you can see, if I tilt it, it does catch a lot of fingerprints, but it's very solid. When I'm holding it in my hand, I don't feel like I'm gonna lose it or it's gonna slip away. No. Has just about the right amount of weight. And if we flip it to the side here, this band or this side shell, it actually provides perfect amount of grip on the side here. And if you look at these volume rockers, you can tell that this is the volume rockers because it feels smoother. And like I said in my unboxing video, the power button has like a textured feel to it, so you can always tell it apart. But other than that, the build quality is really solid. Minus the fact that I don't really like getting all these fingerprints on the front and back. The build quality is solid. Now, moving right along, what we have here on this device is a 4.5 inch IPS LCD display, I believe. And it has a pixel density of about, I think it's 240. Let me just double check real quick. Let's hit save. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Let me try and get it to focus up here. Hold on. Let me get a zoom for you guys. Okay. Let that focus. So right there, yes, you can see the pixel density is about 240. And the screen resolution, although it's not HD, it performs pretty well. The screen resolution is 540 by 960. And I must say, it performs really well for not being an HD screen. And I think this also equates to why the battery life on this phone is so good. Let me zoom out real quick. Sorry about that, guys. And I have to say, with this package, I think Motorola has really come up with a winning package here. And yeah, so the screen, as you can see, if we just go to the home screen, it looks gorgeous. I know it's not HD, and I know a lot of people complain, oh, you can see pixels. You really can't. If you're holding the phone where you're supposed to hold the phone, if it's not right up next to your eye, you really can't. And the display performs very well. As you can see, let me crank up the brightness. outdoors, it does get decently bright outdoors. That's about as bright as it gets. And inside, if you want to do some light reading at night, it does get pretty dim, as you can see here. But for me, I like to keep it right about there, and it doesn't affect the battery life that much. But moving right along, now let's talk about some of the hardware and the software that's in this guide. So hardware wise, we're running a Snapdragon 200 processor clocked at 1.2 gigahertz, and it's 4 cores, as you can see there. Let me zoom back in so you guys can see. Keep it real good here. Let that focus back up. So as you can see, it's a Snapdragon. Now it says 400, but some of my other things say it's a Snapdragon 200, and I don't actually get 4G on this device, so I'm inclined to say that it's a Snapdragon 200, but it's still a quad core and it performs quite nicely. And there you guys can see. And in terms of RAM, we got 1 gig of RAM on this device. You can see the actual amount right there. 8 gigs of storage, but you actually get 5. But really, what you have available after you load a lot of apps on here, not too much. I have about 2 gigs, 2.5 gigs left. And you can expand this by removing the side shell with micro SD cards. They say 32 gigs, but you might be able to go higher, but it says 32 gigs. So other than that, you have a 5 megapixel camera on the back, and you have a VGA camera, which is a 0.3 megapixel camera on the front. We're going to get into that a little later. And you have your front firing speaker, which is awesome, and your receiver. We're going to get into that a little bit later as well. And yeah, that's about all the hardware. Now, let me zoom back out for you guys here. Software wise, we are running Android Lollipop, that's 5.0.2, and this is the Google Now launcher on here. And I must say, Motorola was not intrusive at all. This is pretty much how Google intended Android to be, minus a few apps here like Motorola alerts. Like if you get hurt, it'll send out an emergency alert to a contact of your choice and it'll beep. And if we go into the settings here, and you can see the Lollipop setting with all the toggles and such. No flashlight toggle because there is no flash on this device. But if we go into the settings here, you can see that the settings are pretty much stock, minus some Motorola features here. So in terms of Motorola features, you get the Moto display, you get some assist features, and this is the quick twist, so you can launch the camera. There it goes. We'll talk about the camera a little bit later. And let me just get back into the settings real quickly here. So other than, oh wow, that jumped out really fast. Alright, let's just do it this way. Sorry about this, guys. So if we go back into Motorola settings, you have you could set sleep times, you could set meeting times, and your phone will go off and only priority notifications will be able to reach you. And if you go into display, you have Moto display, and what Moto display does is while the screen is off, you pick it up real quick and then it'll show you a nice little notification there. It's kind of hard to do when you're on camera like this, but I think y'all did see it earlier And it is actually pretty sweet because it only turns on the pixels that you need to work the display. So that's pretty nice. And you can respond to your text messages and see your notifications quite quickly without unlocking the display. So that's pretty nice. And that's about it. That's pretty much all of what Motorola did there. Then you have your Motorola ID, and all that pretty much helps you with the backing up or the transferring of data and files. So if you're coming from another device, something like that. And yeah, other than that, it is stock. It's all stock, exactly how Google intended it to be. So that's pretty awesome. Now, moving right along here, let's talk about some of the glitches, the stutters, and the crashes. And I have a few tips on how to fix some of this stuff because I did experience about 4 crashes in my usage. And YouTube crashed, my Messenger crashed, Facebook Messenger, some of my movie apps crashed. So there were a few crashes. And what I find is that when there are a lot of apps running in the background, and it tends to crash when it fills up. Now, real quickly, and I just want to mention this because I don't know if I mentioned it before, but in terms of RAM, you only have 1 gig on this device, and pretty much that's what you got right there. I don't know how well you can see that. Let that focus. And there's not really too much on here, but that's about what you got. Now they said 1 gig, but if you do the math, that's like just under 1 gig. It runs smoothly, but when you have a lot of stuff open, it tends to crash. And now, every so often when you open an app, like you open YouTube, it didn't really catch it too well on there, but it does take just a few seconds. It's noticeable. It takes just a few seconds. Now, a quick little way to fix that, because I figured I'd just give y'all a little tip, is you go down to About Device, and you find your build number here, and you keep tapping that, and eventually you'll become a developer. Now, inside of the developer options, you go in and you go to your animation settings, which is down here, and you set this to what you would like. Usually, if it's kind of laggy like that, I like to just turn this completely off. Some people say that's kind of jarring. They put it to whatever you would like. 0.5 is good. There's a whole bunch in here. 0.5, 1, off. I usually like to keep mine off, but for purposes of making the review, I don't like to touch these settings unless I absolutely have to. But I did notice that there were just a little bit of lag when you just navigate the UI regularly and opening apps. It did tend to take just a few seconds more, so I just wanted to give you guys that tip. Now, moving right along here, let's talk about the Wi-Fi in this guy. And right here, in terms of Wi-Fi, we have, I made a note of it, we have Wi-Fi 802.11 BG and N. Now, no AC on this device, no dual band on this device. That would have been awesome to have the 5 gigahertz band. I really enjoy when phones have that, because then you take advantage of the absolute fastest speeds. But is that a problem? No. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna load up a YouTube video here and show you guys real quick. Anything will do. Let's see, just a few seconds of something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So let's check this out from CNET. And as you can see, it loads up really fast. And another thing I wanted to tell you,
what's up,
in terms of resolution,
that Google-licious,
you can only do
everything
480p.
Google that we can pack inside of a show. The
Yeah.
OnePlus 2 is the Android phone with the biggest buzz
Is
right
that
now,
bad?
especially since
No,
they
not
continue
really.
to announce each new feature.
But let's check out this Wi-Fi.
By one. Now, over the past week, we found out more information. In addition to its announced Snapdragon 810 processor, the OnePlus...
So, yeah, there you go. In terms of Wi-Fi, it loads up very, very quickly. No problems with the Wi-Fi whatsoever. And I'm saying I was a little sad that it didn't have dual band, so I can't take advantage of my 5 gigahertz. But it's still a solid device, even without dual band, and the Wi-Fi works perfectly. So, moving right along, let's talk about some of the bands that this guy supports. And you know what? I think I'm just going to go ahead and tell you all of them. So this will include the 3G model, like I have here, and the LTE model. So the bands that this guy supports are 800, 900, 1900, 1800, 1700, 2100, 700 band 12, 700 band 17, 850 band 5, 1700 and 2100 band 4, 1900 band 2, 2600 band 7. So make sure your carrier supports those bands, and then if it does, this phone should work no problem. So let's now talk about the data speeds here. And I'm going to show you some of the Wi-Fi testing later when we get into benchmarks. But if I cut off the Wi-Fi, because I tend to use the Wi-Fi a lot, no need to run up the data here. But if I cut off the Wi-Fi and I turn my data on, and you can see right now it's saying E, but in good areas I tend to get a little H there. And if it doesn't say H, it says 3G. So you're not gonna get 4G on this device. At most you'll probably get the H. And yeah, service is kind of bad right now, but usually when I'm out and about, I see the little H there, and the speeds are decent, really, really decent. So I can't complain on that front. So let's go ahead and cut the Wi-Fi back on, and we'll continue the review. So yeah, and I'll show you some of those data speeds and Wi-Fi speeds later on in the benchmark section. Now let's move on here. Let's talk about the Bluetooth. So inside this device, you have Bluetooth 4.0, and I must say Bluetooth was awesome. Now, I have some Bluetooth headphones here, my Lot Fancies here, and I must say it synced up to the Lot Fancies, no problem. I tested the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and with some Sonys and some other things, and it worked out really, really well. But in terms of Bluetooth, it's really, really solid. I sent some apps to inform some other devices and didn't have any issues. I was Bluetooth over my contacts because some of my contacts didn't sync over when I first set up the device with my Google account. So I Bluetooth over some contacts, Didn't have any issues with the Bluetooth. So the Bluetooth is really, really solid. And another feature that I don't know if I mentioned, but in Android Lollipop, they have what's called trusted devices. So you can set up like a smartwatch or any type of Bluetooth device, and once that device is connected to your phone, you could just go right in, don't need no pin, nothing like that. And when that device is not connected, then you have to enter a pin or a password or anything like that. So that was pretty cool. I actually tested that out. And another feature that I didn't really test, but it's also in Android Lollipop, which I don't know if I mentioned again, so I'm gonna go ahead and mention it now, is the screen pinning feature. And what you do is you just turn it on, and then you hold the back and the recent apps button, and it will pin that app to the screen. And there goes that Moto display that I was trying to show you guys earlier. But those were pretty sweet. Sorry if I got off track, but I don't remember if I mentioned those earlier. Now, moving right along, because I'm just trying to get everything in, is let's move to the GPS. Now, I must say that the GPS on this device, guys, was awesome. If I had to say it rivals anything else, I would say that these two GPSs are on par. Now, if you watched my review of this is my 635. This GPS was just like, it locked on seconds, and the strength was awesome. No tweaking, no anything. The Bluetooth on this guy, the GPS on this guy, sorry, is similar, if not better, than this. I didn't have to do any tweaks, like I mentioned in some of my other reviews, like the LG Vista. Had to do some tweaking, had to get root, had to change some things. Didn't have to do that on this guy. The GPS worked perfectly. It locked on within seconds, didn't have any issues. So that was awesome, and y'all know I'm pretty GPS heavy, and I use the GPS a lot, and to my surprise, it didn't impact the battery that much. But we're going to talk about the battery again a little bit later on. So now, moving along here, let's talk about the call quality and the speakers on this guy. Now, I must say, let me take this off the frame here. I must say, call quality wise, this phone is good. Now, I did find myself in situations where I wished I could turn it up a little louder, and it was maxed out. I don't know if that's me getting older or it just wasn't that strong. I'm not sure. But in terms of actual quality of the phone calls, they were clear. The voices on the other end were nice and crisp. I just had a issue that it didn't sound as loud to me. And callers have said that I sounded nice and crisp on the other end. No issues there. Now, in terms of speaker quality, let me go ahead and load up some music here for you guys, so you guys can hear. Let me see what's in my library here. Speaker quality was, again, clear and crisp, but I noticed that these speakers are lacking in the bass department. So here, let me find something that's a little bass heavy, and let me pause it real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the whole range. So this is kind of on the low end, so you can see that's nice and low. And if I crank it up, it's about 50%. Now you can hear it sounds good. I don't know how it's coming up in the camera, but it sounds good. Now, sounds really good. I'm going to leave this link in the description if you guys want to hear this out. But in points in the song where the bass drops and it's, you know, the bass is supposed to hit you heavy, you don't really have any bass there. And I understand that they had to cut some corners somewhere because this is a budget device, but they could have gave you a little bit of bass. But other than that, I would have to say that the speaker is awesome, and front-facing speakers are awesome. Can't really muffle it because the sound is coming right at you. So movies and videos on this device in quiet rooms were awesome. Now if you get into more noisy areas, you might want to invest in some Bluetooth headphones or something, because like I said, I wish they can get a little bit louder, but other than that, it was crisp and clear. Now, moving right along, let's talk about the cameras in this guy. So, use a little quick wrist gesture, and here we are, we're right in the camera here. So, this has a 5 megapixel rear shooter and a 0.3 megapixel front facing shooter, and the interface is simple. So you get to your other settings by swiping in here, and you go through this wheel to access your settings, and all you really have here is 3.7 wide view or 4.35 megapixel view. That's it. You can do your manual focus like this. You got auto HDR, you have panorama, you could do geotag, you can send your pictures to the SD card, just like that. You could turn on and off the flash, but other than that, it's fairly simple. This is your exposure slider and your focus. That's that. But out of the box, you're not gonna have focus on. It's gonna come just like this, and you know, you slide your finger up and down to zoom in and out. And what you do here, let me bring something into the frame real quick. So what you do here is you just tap the screen, boom, and it's done. Picture's taken that quick. Now that's simple, it's wonderful, it's gorgeous. Now front facing camera, pretty much the same, hey guys, but this VGA, it's usable, and in the right lighting, maybe, but you do the same thing. It's kind of zooming right now. Didn't want to zoom, but you do the same thing. Here's your panel, just like that. No HDR, no anything like that. You still get your little focus joints here, but other than that, that's it. Now, and then you touch the screen, take a little picture, boom, there we go. Now, let's get into some photo samples here for you guys, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And there goes the pictures I just took, and here are my samples. Now, these aren't the best samples. This is just around the house and around town. And as you can see, in decent lighting, the pictures look okay. You know, it's pretty solid. It's my shot glass, it's my backyard. You know, it's in the living room. Now, what I noticed was, in less than perfect lighting, the pictures tend to be like, wouldn't say washed out, but the colors seem to be like blown up a little bit to where it's kind of like too much color in there. And then if you zoom in, it's like really grainy. Now, if you guys have watched some of my other videos, you know these macro shots, you get a lot of detail. But on this guy, this 5 megapixel guy here, Now, that's kind of disappointing, because on my on the HTC Desire video, even when you zoom in, you still had some details. But once again, this is a budget device and they had to cut somewhere. Now, if you cue it up just right, as you see here with this decent photo, you can get a good photo out of this guy. But like I noticed, the conditions have to be almost perfect If not, you're gonna end up with some washed out photos here. Like you can see, even this balloon photo here is kind of blown out a little bit. And that's not my camera, that's the actual photo that's like that. So, and you can see even this tree, it caught some details, but it's kind of blew out. And that was a nice sunny day. It was 90 degrees. It's nice. It's summertime, getting it in. Now, the front facing camera here, I tried to catch this white door and some of the spackle from the frame, and it came across nice, and that was actually pretty good. So for video calls, even though this camera is not the best, you're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. You can do that. Now, here I tried to get some macros of this gas can here. Didn't come out too well. But, I mean, it's usable. You can read the words. So, yeah. In good conditions, perfect conditions, yeah, you're not going to have an issue. But in less than perfect conditions, it's going to be a few issues here. Now, let me show you some of the video samples. So, enjoy. Here, we got a video test of the front-facing camera on the Motorola Moto E 2nd generation. Can't really see how this one's working out right now. Wonder how the audio is doing too. Apologize for the shaky hands. But there you go. Alright, so that was the front facing camera. And as you can see, it kind of made my my video camera go a little wonky, because as the exposure rolled around the frame, my camera was having trouble focusing on the scene. So that was the front facing picture. I mean, it works. But here's an example of the rear facing 5 megapixel shooter here. Alright, so what I have here for you guys today